What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE. Now, there is a separate A15 5G, which is a completely different phone from this one. Of course, this phone and that phone do share a lot in common, but technically they are different devices, and I will actually be doing a comparison between this phone and that phone in a separate video. But this device is all about the 4G only version of the Samsung Galaxy A15. Now, as of right now, this device is not being offered in the US, but it is possible that could change as time goes on. And I certainly hope that they do offer this in the US, considering that they did offer the 4G only version of the A14 in the US last year. So I don't know if they're moving away from that and Samsung only wants to offer 5G phones in the US at this point. We'll have to see, I really don't know, but it will be interesting to see what happens. But let's now see what all comes included here in the box. So opening this up, there's not a whole lot, I'll tell you that right now, but we have a SIM card removal tool, and then there's this packet, and then in the packet, we have a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer, and then we're also getting some literature here. But unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter included. But one thing's for sure, I'm a big fan of the material on the back of this device. Typically, I don't really like phones that have a glossy back on them, but I think this just looks really cool and very unique, especially compared to other lower-end smartphones that have been launched in the last couple of years. But with the Samsung Galaxy A15, we're getting a very large 6.5-inch display. Now this is excellent for watching video content, going on social media, all of that, just because you're able to view that content on such a large canvas here. Now, in addition to that, we're actually getting a Super AMOLED display here with the device. So that's also very impressive that for a phone that's this low end, we're getting Super AMOLED. So basically with Super AMOLED, compared to LCD, for example, you're getting better viewing angles, you're also getting brighter colors on the display too, and bolder colors as well. So in pretty much every way, Super AMOLED is an upgrade over LCD. Then from there, to make things even better, this device features a 90Hz refresh rate, so a bit smoother than the 60Hz that you typically find with lower end devices. Now, if you do go into the settings here on the phone, and you go into display settings, you'll see right here where it says motion smoothness. By default, it is set to 90 Hz. However, if you want to see the difference, you can switch the phone over to 60 Hz, which will actually give you better battery life. But after making that switch, you can see the interface is a lot more choppy here. And that's because it's now running at 60 Hz instead of 90. So I just wanted to point that out there in case you want to really see the difference and the benefit of 90 Hz. But I certainly think it is a worthwhile benefit, and I do recommend keeping it enabled here. Now, this device features a 1080p display, which is also very impressive, so very crisp and clear here. We're getting a PPI of 396. We're getting a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor here with the device. And we're getting an 84.3% screen-to-body ratio. Now, up top here, we do have a notch, and in that notch is a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. And definitely stay tuned for my full review of the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE, as I'll be showing you a variety of different camera samples from all the various cameras here on this device. Now, internally with this phone, we are getting 128 gigabytes of storage, which is really impressive, especially for a low-end smartphone. And then along with that, we're also getting microSD card expansion. So if for some reason you find yourself filling up the entirety of that 128 gigs, or if you just want to free up additional internal space, you can always move photo and video content over to that SD card to make that possible. But you've probably noticed that over the years, apps have been continuing to get bigger and bigger, so it is more and more important to have a phone with a lot of storage space inside of it. Now with this device, there is no wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing, but this phone does feature a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. So let's give that a try right now. And that's very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. And there we go, works really well and also very accurate there too. And that's very nice to see, especially for a lower end phone. Now, in addition to that, we're also getting Face Unlock here with the A15 4G LTE, so I'm really glad that's available too. Now, taking a look at the camera module on the back of the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE, we do have a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And then with this phone, we're getting portrait mode with both the rear and front cameras. And then video recording with this phone does max out at 1080p with the front and rear cameras as well. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. Now by default, with the main rear camera, it is going to take photos at 12 megapixels. But if you want to switch over to 50 megapixels, just tap up there, and then it'll make that switch. And then from there, you can capture 50 megapixel images. Now keep in mind that one of the reasons why 50 megapixels is not enabled by default is because 50 megapixel photos tend to take up a lot more space on the device compared to 12 megapixels. And for most people, 12 megapixels is good enough. So if you do want to take slightly better quality photos in the full 50 megapixels, feel free and do that. As you can see, really, things look amazing here. But just know that it is going to fill up the storage on your device faster compared to 12 megapixels. But I think that pretty much makes a lot of sense there. Now then from here, we can go over to 0.5 to access the ultra-wide camera. And with that, we can fit a lot more content into a single frame here. We can then go out of there, go to the More tab and access the macro camera. And with macro, you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. I'm going to take a photo of this Lego right now to see how that looks. And you can see after doing that, we can see a lot of detail on the Lego itself by using the macro camera. Then from there, we can move over to portrait mode and get those nice blurred out backgrounds. You can also pick the level of blur you want as well. And then we can flip around to the front facing camera and take portrait selfies. And then also with the front camera, there's an option here so that you can take a group selfie, so it crops out slightly. And then you can also go over to the standard photo mode and take standard selfies as well. So one of the things that I especially like about the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE is that with this device, even though it is meant to be lower end, we're still getting a lot of different camera abilities here. So maybe you don't want to spend too much on a flagship phone, but instead you want to kind of try out some of those features on a lower end device like this one, then at least you know that maybe you're using the ultra wide angle camera a lot. If that's the case, then you would then be able to justify spending more on a higher end device with better cameras in the future. But if you get this device and you find that you're only using the standard camera, then at least you've learned that you don't need all those advanced features. So this is definitely a good starter phone if you're not really sure what exactly you need. Now keep in mind that with the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE, this phone is offered in various RAM configurations. This specific version of the phone does come with 6 GB of RAM, and then the processor is the MediaTek Helio G99. Now, one obvious thing about this phone, and hence the name of it, it is not compatible with 5G connectivity, which is a limitation of that processor. But at this point in 2024, I do think you can get by with just 4G LTE. However, for most people, I do recommend going for a 5G device, just because if you're going to go through all the time and effort of getting a brand new smartphone, I feel like you may as well get one that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network. But on the other hand, if you feel like you can get a really good deal on this device, and you don't feel like paying extra for a 5G smartphone, then I suppose it is worth going for this phone. But overall, with that configuration of RAM and the processor, don't expect to get the world's best performance out of this device. The phone will definitely be good enough for phone calls, text messages, browsing the web, going on social media, watching video content, but if you use your phone for work, for example, maybe you're just always on your phone, then you probably will want to get something a bit more advanced than this device. Now, I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 728 and a multi-core score of 1987. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of if the Galaxy A15 is even going to be a performance upgrade for you, because if your current phone is faster than this one, then you wouldn't switch over to this device. But in general, I actually think those scores are pretty good, especially for a lower end phone like this one. Now, taking a closer look at the hardware of the device, this phone is made completely of plastic, besides the display, which is made of glass. So I do recommend pairing up the phone with some sort of case, just so that it doesn't get too scratched up as time goes on. But taking a look at the left side of the device, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. On the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have the noise-canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. And then on the back of the phone, we have that triple camera setup, flash, and Samsung logo. So overall, I'm very excited about the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE. Of course, this phone comes with quite a few compromises, one of them being that there is no 5G support, but if that's not important for you, then you're actually getting a really good smartphone here. So, most importantly, I'm curious to know what you think about the Samsung Galaxy A15 4G LTE. Let me know in the comment section below, but this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.